I don't know if you saw Mike Stevenson's, where he said his audio, I believe, is not working.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mike, can you hear us okay?
So Liam is
Doesn't look like it.
Allison. Allison's here. Alan's here. Nick is here. Karen.
You're jumping ahead of yourself, Annalee.
Well, I'm just saying the names out loud from what I wrote down last time, so I don't have to rewrite them.
Nick, I don't know if Mike can hear, but he can dial in if he has to.
Right.
As long as he mutes his mic on the phone, he could dial in with the dial-in number.
So Nick, just so you know, we are live on YouTube.
Thank you. All right. We're ready to call to order, and we'll hope Mike can work out his audio here. All right. We'll call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone to the January 28th, 2021 Town of Scarborough Charter Review Committee meeting. First item tonight is a roll call. Annalee, if you could please call the roll.
I will be happy to. So let me get to the page in alphabetical order. So Allison Bristol. Here. Alan Foster.
Here.
Nick McGee.
Here.
Me. Karen Shoup.
Here.
Richard Silkman.
Here.
Mary Starr. I thought I
Here.
saw Mary.
Yep.
Oh,
Here.
there you are. Mike Stevenson.
He's here.
He's got the sound problem.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Are we sure
And
it's
Mike
him?
Wood.
Mike Wood is here.
All right. And I see Betsy Gleistein, Jean Marie Katerina, and Leanne Casalonis. Liam Gallagher is here, Tom Hall, and Tony Justice. 100%.
Thank you
All
very
here.
much, Annalee. Mike Stevenson, can you hear us okay? All right. Keep working on that. You can do the dial-in number too, if you go back to that email. Oh, can you hear us now, Mike?
Send him a chat. Tell him he can dial
Yeah.
in.
Doesn't look like you can.
All right.
I'll call him. I have his phone number.
All right. All right. Next item on tonight's agenda is the approval of the minutes, January 12th, 2021. I don't know if everyone had a chance to review those. Yes? Okay. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second by Alan Foster. Any discussion on those? And then quick clarifying on my end, Tony, you caught a typo. Was that fixed before they were submitted
Yes.
to the rest of the group? They were.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was fixed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No,
All right.
I was all set up and then it started and
Now it's working.
You're
yeah,
working, Mike. We can all hear
anything
you.
or can I contribute?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a step in the right direction.
Thanks. All right. So all in favor of
Yes.
approving the minutes from January 12th, 2021? All opposed? So this is unanimous. Thank you. Next item on tonight's agenda is the establish a procedure to bring proposed changes forward. I hope all of you had a quick minute to look at the recommendations. I really wanted to give us a starting off point on how we can maybe best structure the work that we need to be doing here. So at this,
I don't see where you are.
at this point in time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ask in general if anyone had any thoughts based on what I submitted, suggestions, ideas, and I'm just going to open it up. Everyone loved it. Fantastic. All right. So, no, any other thoughts on this? And I'll give you a little context to it. I really wanted to structure this so we didn't end up in meetings. I know we've allotted about an hour and a half tops here for our meetings on Thursdays. What I didn't want to see us do is get bogged down on town council salary for an hour and a half. And we end up putting out a meeting and we don't meet for another 2 weeks. I think some of these issues can get lengthy and deserve more in-depth discussion. So I was figuring in these smaller settings, this would allow us to maybe hash those out a little deeper before we get into our our full committee meeting. That was the thought process behind this. Betsy.
So, yeah, I definitely appreciate that sentiment. I do have a concern, the charter is the most important document, for the town. And we've narrowed down to 7 citizens, who are going to work on it. And then if we narrow it down further to like 3 citizens, I think we're starting to be like, some of these issues like that are fairly large, like to just discuss wards, do we want to have voting wards? That's a pretty big topic. I'm not sure at what point the entire committee and the advisors, would like to hear from other people. So, if you're just talking about the subcommittee itself, voting up or down and bringing it back to the committee, I think we've kind of narrowed that quite a bit. And then I guess my other question would be with the subcommittees, would anybody be able to attend those? Could we make sure they weren't simultaneous and then make comments, because I think we'd have to make sure that, any member of the public and any member on the committee who wanted to make comments and attend those didn't have conflicts between different subcommittees. So I definitely appreciate the sentiment, and I'm not saying I'm beaming with ideas of how to best go through this, but I think at least for an initial pass, I'd be interested in hearing about all the different changes people are proposing, but that's just my initial thought.
Thanks, Betsy. And I do want to be clear that if we did move forward with a proposal like this, there is mechanism in place where a idea could be brought to the full charter committee itself if it was, not, denied or found not to be in favor at a subcommittee level. So I don't want it to die out in these small groups, Betsy, to your point. That's not the purpose of it. And I agree that there are a lot of big topics that would benefit a full discussion. And I think if we did go with a subcommittee approach, it's worthwhile for a subcommittee to consider advancing an item to the full committee. If perhaps they're in a situation where they don't have agreement, is a perfect example. If you're 50-50 or it's a meaty topic and you believe that the full committee, I think there's a way we should be advancing those ideas too. So I appreciate that, Betsy. Any other ideas, comments? Mr. Wood.
Thanks, Nick. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I saw,
Let's do Mary just in case she's got to bounce out, and then we'll
Oh,
go
okay.
over. Yeah.
I just had a question, because like, as far as like sponsoring a change, but I know for me reading it, like I had some questions, so I'm not sure like how would we address just like, some of the language. It's like, okay, what does this exactly mean, and how is this going to play out? Like, I don't know how that gets, addressed. That was was just one question I had, even though I like the system of, the subcommittees. But I can see Betsy's point as well, that I think there are some things that probably just need to, come straight to the larger committee. But I wondered because I know we talked last time, I think we'd mentioned, maybe a smaller committee would look at other towns. And I know some people have already looked at other towns, and I know I've looked a little bit. I think everybody's probably looked a little bit around. But to me, that might be a really nice use of a subcommittee, just a committee looking at the towns and just kind of doing a really kind of deeper dive on that. I just wondered if that kind of work might be something to consider for the subcommittees. So, but
Yeah, and I think one of my big asks would be of all of us and anyone submitting something is that the questions are good and you're going to have some, and we're going to want to do research. But I think what's really going to help advance some of the dialogue is actually coming up with a proposal. So for instance, as far as disclaimers go, I think everyone on this committee should be fully aware, just because you propose something doesn't mean that's exactly what you want to see. And I think you need to have that level of comfort. And I'll give you a perfect example. I think town council should be paid $20,000 a year. And I'm going to put that in there. I don't really believe that, by the way. I'm just throwing this out there. But I want to put it out in writing to the subcommittee chair that I want the salary to now be 20,000 a year. That number gives us a jumping off point for discussion about council salary. And that's what I want to see. I want to see the actual language proposal and what's going to happen. And if the subcommittee is done right, that should get digested into a dialogue. And then eventually there should be conversation. And at some point in time, you're going to come out with a different number, hopefully, that, it's either going to be the one that we have now, or you're going to end up at $2,000. But for the purposes of pushing the discussion forward, I think it would be wise to have specific language changes presented to a subcommittee. Now, as far as general questions and research, I believe that there are going to be instances where you're going to want to have a little bit more information. And I think that's something that'd be worth attempting to coordinate maybe with town staff, whether it's a meeting with a town attorney for all of us to have maybe at the next meeting. And we can try to start to sift through some of those general questions prior to getting in to some of the detailed proposals. And I'd be open to a meeting that's dedicated to, let's answer the questions, let's get some advice from the town attorney, and then we should go off after that meeting and really dive in. We can get mired down, and I don't want to see that happen to us. I want to see us, take proposals, chew on them, and then come back to this full committee with really good recommendations, so we can in turn make good recommendations to the town council. I think that's in my brain how I envisioned it kind of going. I'm not sure that came out on paper. I don't know if that's the right path, but that's the way I see this kind of working. Richard.
And I'm sort of going back to something that Betsy said earlier. This isn't that long of a document. There's a little less than a dozen articles. I'm not sure that we need subcommittees. The group is a small enough group that I think each of us probably has some ideas around the entire document. And when we get into subcommittees, what's going to happen is we're going to get consensus in a subcommittee that may not be shared by the rest of the body. And we're going to have to deal with this, with that discord at some point anyway. So, what I would suggest is that, we just walk through the document. And if it takes us, we get through 2 articles a night or 4 articles a night, and just sort of plow on through and hear what people have to say about each of the different provisions and answer questions as we get to those. I think we're all, we've all been through these things plenty of times. We know, the object here isn't to monopolize the conversation, it's to get consensus and to be agreeable about things. And I think that we can proceed along just one article at a time, just like we were doing, contracts with 5 different parties. We go through page by page.
Thanks for that. Mr. Wood.
Am I muted? No.
Nope.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate both viewpoints really, but this is a big committee, and giving ourselves an hour and a half, 2 hours for the meeting, I'm not sure we're going to really be able to absorb all that this charter has to offer and really hear from everybody. So I like the subcommittee work to a point. I'm wondering whether there's areas in this charter that are worthy of the full group's discussion, and there might be other areas, call it maybe less substantive, that would be worthy of subcommittee work. And we might use the time to go through the document tonight and decide what is worthy of a subcommittee work and what might be worthy of the whole committee's work. Just an idea.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mr. Stevenson. Nope, I think you're muted.
Liam, I think you need to, there he goes.
Yep. Just following on really from what Mike said there, I think when you look at those questions, observations, points that have been forthcoming so far, there are some in there that are hardly worthy of discussion at all, because I think they're clarifications. There's a couple of typos. There's confusion that someone could go to the lawyer maybe and explain what that phrase or that sentence and paragraph actually means. So maybe we've got three sections. One set of things that are worthy of the whole group, some that are subcommittees, and some can be on a back burner and just an exchange of emails until, you know, we understand the wording associated with that particular section.
Thank you. I saw Annalie's hand up as well. You're on mute, Annalie.
Sorry. So I haven't quite made up my mind. I'm leaning toward the subcommittee because when I read the document that was sent finally, I think this morning, there seemed to be some themes that were common from who we've heard from that that lend themselves to bringing it down in a subcommittee to a narrower focus. But I think that when the subcommittee reports back, that it needs to talk about all the other ideas that were not put into the final recommendation of what should be in the final document. And I think there has to be a process that allows the public to be informed as we go along so that they can continually offer input till we get down to the very end. Because I think there definitely needs to be ongoing input. You know, I have a list of things that I've gotten from different people that I've heard from that I haven't submitted yet, but so many of them are along the theme that I already read in the document that Liam sent out this morning with those other comments. It's amazing how common some of the interests are.
Betsy?
There's the mute.
Yeah, so I think kind of where people are kind of hitting on is kind of a combination. So I wonder if, you know, if we could, you know, I think Annalie's point is really good. I don't think we should be ready to say, okay, whatever anybody submitted now, that's all we're going to consider and we're done taking input. Because I think there are people out there who are just starting to hear about this and, you know, are going to want to put some changes in going forward. And then I think there's some things that if we're breaking up into sections, you know, do we even know right now what changes, you know, and what go into what sections, so that we would know where to assign, you know, assign the request to. So it's kind of like, how do we boil down this work? So, I mean, I think like Mike's suggestion, I mean, I wonder if we want to start kind of going through tonight, you know, what's been submitted already, and then anything anybody else on the committee wants to say, and kind of figuring out where those things would fall into subcommittees, whether or not we do it by section or we decide to do it, you know, maybe we do a substantive subcommittee, and we do a staff subcommittee, you know, I don't know, however we do it. But maybe it would help us to talk a few details, you know, in terms of kind of just start to talk about what people have submitted already, and then figure out how to break down into the smaller work groups.
Alan?
Yeah, I think especially want to thank Liam for putting that together, because looking through it, he's already got a good start on what we need to do. So kind of agree with Betsy on that one. We need to just start looking at it and see if we can codify what we need to, how we need to do it.
Thanks. Jean Marie?
Yeah, this is a question that I have for people who've worked on this before. I know as a counselor, I haven't given any input because I feel it's more important to hear from the general public. Those of you who are on the committee who were selected as the general public. And if you were to break up into subcommittees, I don't know how that would work, because I see our roles, Betsy's role, my role. And Leanne, you're school board, right? Non-voting, because we're all non-voting people. So I would want you guys to discuss how you saw our roles, I think, unless Mr. Hall can clarify more on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Jean Marie. I think, you know, and that's I think it's a point that we've heard over and over. We don't want to inundate anyone with excess meetings. And I'm not, you know, and I'm sensitive to that. I think not only on behalf of the elected officials that are here with us, but also just the town staff. I'm also aware that they have lives outside of these meetings, and if we can reduce the number of these meetings that we have, that would be beneficial. So I can definitely see the reason you subcommittees are they're kind of like, ooh, do we need to go there? As I said, the only reason I'm proposing it at this time is I'm a little worried that we may find ourselves taking entire meetings with staff and council present to go over singular topics. Not that they don't deserve the time that we want to have debating them, but with the number of people that we've included in here for discussing these and commenting on them and submitting information on them, I do worry we'll end up dragging this out much longer than maybe we should. I did have a thought about when committee meetings could meet, and not that anyone here likes extending the length of our current Thursday meetings, but if we were to do a 6:30 to 7:30 subcommittee for, 3 of the sections, 7:30 to 8:30 for the 3 other, and then 8:30 to 9:30, you could in theory limit the frequency of our meetings and limit them to the Thursday nights we have penciled in. If you're not on the subcommittee and you don't want to hang around for that portion of the discussion, you can sign off for an hour and have some dinner. But these are things that we do need to be talking about and sorting out before we move forward. So I've put forth my proposal. I'm willing to entertain other proposals for how we structure this. Jean Marie.
One thing I thought of is, why couldn't you make Tuesday subcommittee meeting night and then Thursday the full committee? Or are we doing Tuesday? We just do it Thursday. I don't even know what I'm doing anymore. I've been in a meeting all day with Maine Municipal, so. Are we just Thursdays?
We have every other.
Oh wait, we're the second and fourth Thursday. So
Correct.
You could do one of the meetings as subcommittee meetings, and then the second meeting of the month, the full, if
Sure.
you did feel you wanted to. There, now I've got my head on straight. Thank you.
It's a good proposal as well. Annalee?
Nick, your picture moved on my screen. I don't know if this is a question to Liam or to you, but the document like we received this morning, that must have taken a lot of time, I think, to put together. But where is that going to be available somewhere for people who have an interest in the public to look at? If they wanted to follow up with comments or on that website. And the reason I'm asking, I've already announced in 2 organizations, being a chamber board is one, so they get the publicity out to their chamber members saying, hey, this is going on. But I didn't know quite what to tell them about where they should, how they should respond or keep up.
It's a great point,
Someone's got
Annalee.
to that.
Liam, do you know if we're going to be having a shared Google Drive or a public? I mean, I did see on the Town of Scarborough website, there's the agenda and the charter and things like that. To what extent do we expect documents that were produced out of here to be available to the public? Or Tom, I see.
Yeah, certainly we can. We intend to create a shared Google Drive you all have access to. I think that makes perfect sense for a working committee like this. One of the challenges with a dynamic document such as this, this document as of today doesn't reflect presumably all of the comments. And even if it does, it reflects individual comments. So I think there's some challenge and potential danger in having a dynamic living document available for public consumption, just so they know what it is. But, we can work through that. But certainly to have one available for all of your use, absolutely, we'll have, Cody's already made arrangements for that to take place.
And what's the forum for that?
I would propose we use a shared Google Drive you all have access to. We can populate that with resource material. For those of you that have found other charters that you find particularly helpful, we could use that as a repository for all of that sort of material.
That'd be nice.
Liam?
Yeah, just a quick response to Annalee's comment. I do apologize again to Mr. Wood for overlooking his carefully thought out comments. The compilation wasn't terribly time consuming, so just again, shouldn't be a concern of the committee to this point. From a process standpoint, I would say we're still in, it sounds like the committee's still in the, we're kind of all ears for public comments and suggestions, as well as, I know that, again, a number of you already stated that you have some ideas of your own as to what you want to get out there for some discussion. But I would, in terms of soliciting public comments, I think that a more specific agenda, perhaps, as we get organized and outline what those certain subjects or sections are that the committee wants to discuss, I think that may generate some more targeted public input. If we say, you know, we're talking about section 503 with regard to budget, and here's what some of the thoughts are, that might generate some public comment and interest as well.
Yeah, I might suggest, my experience is that you'll likely get your best comment when you've got something tangible for folks to react to. And I know that may be somewhat counterintuitive, but that's really what the work of this committee is, to kind of work through some of that. And I think you'll know those half a dozen issues that you really want to make sure you get public input on. But I think it's really valuable when you've got something specific that you're looking for them to react to. That's just my observation.
So, Betsy?
So maybe the working committees are to take to change, you know, what's been submitted so far, and start really working them into details, not to like say this goes in, this doesn't go in at this point, but get them into, you know, maybe with the help of Liam and Tom and whoever else we need, where would this go? How would we word this exactly? So we take the different things suggested, keep asking for things from the public, and the working groups do a couple of weeks of working. You know, maybe we set a deadline for people to say, hey, look, I know you can submit changes all the way up to the end, but, you know, we really need to get your changes in. And then we get those really codified into the document. Whether or not the subcommittee agrees with them is immaterial. And then we walk through as a committee the changes, as Tom said, that are substantive at that point and detailed. And then we can walk through, you know, okay, here's a markup of section 504. And maybe there's more than one. You know, if the subcommittee had more than one suggestion, here's the 3 markups of 504. You know, these were the 3 things that came in, and let the work groups, you know, get down to the nitty gritty and the detail of the suggested changes, and then bring all the changes back to the committee. I don't know. That's just a thought. It's a little hard to figure out how to get off the stick here, but
I've got a thought on how we're going to get off this. Tom, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, the one thing that I know won't be productive is if this group, as a group, tries to write language in wordsmith. It just does not work. And that's not that I don't appreciate all of your input, but staff is certainly capable, if you can provide clear guidance as to what kind of the policy objective or what you'd like to see, we can certainly work in between meetings. We can bring in town attorney as needed. And certainly any one of you can contribute to that. But I want to make sure, just be clear that I don't think it's a productive use of committee time to actually be drafting language. It's nearly impossible to do it productively.
Thanks, Tom. All right, so for the purposes of trying to bring some finality to this one item of discussion on the agenda, I think we should, I mean, we've got basically 3 paths forward. One is we continue to meet full committee, everything is under consideration line by line. We have option 2, which is the work and changes get parsed out to subcommittees, and those subcommittees are driven through the officers, basically the proposal I typed up. And then we have option 3, which is some form of hybrid model. So it's either yes subcommittee, no subcommittee, or some hybrid model. Can we at least get a vote on which way we should drive this conversation? Because I think we need to put forth the path, and then we got to figure out where that leads us. So first, I'll just call who's in favor of no subcommittees. So just straight up, we're going to handle everything via this full committee. Okay.
I had proposed that, but I like the third option better.
So thanks, Richard. So second proposal is we do break out into subcommittees following roughly the outline provided to you prior to this meeting. Who's in favor of the subcommittee model? I like the subcommittee model, but that's me. Annalee, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Is she talking? Annalee, you're on mute. There you go.
My picture cut out, so I'm trying to take notes. And how many voted for that first one? What was the first?
Nobody wanted the first one. So
Oh, okay.
I think I showed one for the subcommittee model. I couldn't.
Okay, I voted for subcommittee.
Okay. And then we have, so I said 2 for the subcommittee, and then for the hybrid model, we go from a charter and kind of refer out items that we believe need to go to a subcommittee. I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 7. I see 7.
That's 9
All right.
votes.
So we know where that's going. Great. It's a step in the right direction, knowing where you're going. All right. So the next phase on this is to the next part of this is figuring out how we determine items that go to subcommittee or go to a subcommittee or a work group, however we want to phrase it. What do we want the process for that to be? Is that a majority vote? This is too complicated for a general broader discussion. We should refer it to a subcommittee? Is that because we are going to, at this point, if we're taking it from the full committee and at some point we need to determine how it gets to a subcommittee level, what are we going to do for that?
Nick, I wonder if go ahead, Richard, sorry.
When that recommendation was made, I think it was Mike who made it, I had interpreted it that it was the other way around, that some of the larger cross-cutting issues, like, for example, the ward issue versus the general election issue, or some of the other issues that are sort of very broad and fundamental, those would stay with the full group. The subcommittees would be looking at clarifying language, sort of some of the more technical details that were embedded in each of the comments. That's what I interpreted Mike as saying originally. I could be wrong on that, but that was my interpretation, which is backwards from the way you just described it.
Mike, do you want to clarify? You're on mute, Mike.
Sorry. My intent was what Richard just spoke to. I thought as a group, as a larger group, we can go through the document, hopefully tonight, and maybe parse out that which we wish to retain for the whole group's discussion and other things that we might think is worthy of 1 or 2 subcommittees or 3 or 4. I don't know how many you have in mind, but my thinking is that as we go through the document, it's likely that we'll probably find ourselves not needing many subcommittees, but I just would be interested in seeing the process go forward that.
Well, okay, so we're, so I think this gets a little complicated because I know we didn't want subcommittees, but we're actually creating subcommittees, right?
No.
Well, we kind of are, because once a topic becomes too broad for the group, it's going to get referred out to some sort of subsection of our group. Do you see what I'm saying? So we need to determine who's going to work on that subsection. So if you refer out ward voting, for just an example, who is going to lead the charge on researching, on holding a subcommittee meeting, or where does that go?
Well, you started your statement by saying we didn't want subcommittees, and I think I understood it differently. I thought we voted for a hybrid,
which is allowing subcommittees, but right. So
I might suggest that you could use your time to identify those issues that the full body needs to really wrestle with. And I'm not sure how best to walk through that, but I suspect there's probably half a dozen issues that are important enough and meaty enough that the full body wants to retain those and work through them. And then maybe once you understand what those are, you can then consider how to deal with the rest through subcommittees.
Right.
Same thing I did, just differently. So that's
I learned from the best, Mike.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
So we can go through a document and we can pull out what needs to be discussed further, right? Or in a smaller group setting.
What's a group?
How are we going to determine who's on those subcommittee? Is it how do they operate? Are they public hearings? Are they held separate and outside of our current meeting? Yeah, you see that there's a process here that I'm trying to outline so we're very clear how we go forward.
They have to be public hearings. I don't think
Right.
there's any question about that, so.
Nick, it may well be that we follow your proposal that I think you suggested 3 committees responsible for different articles.
Right.
That may be a perfectly reasonable way of handling those lesser items, if you will, important nonetheless, but not worthy of the full attention of the committee from day one.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we get to an understanding of how this will all work for us, and work best. So, yes, Mr. Wood.
Yeah, no, the good points, Nick. Really, it's just that I don't think that those are insurmountable. I mean, there's
No, I don't either.
Right. So, would it be wise just to go through the document, determine what we want for the larger committee, that which we think is more appropriate for subcommittee work, and then discuss how we would structure the subcommittees?
That's one way. My other thought on that, off the top of my head, would be we know. So I'm going to back up a second. If you look at the proposal I had, the sections that got grouped together were done so in a way where they made a little bit of sense, that they were trying to tackle topics of similar in nature.
So Nick, sorry to interrupt you, but could
Yeah.
Liam or somebody bring that document up so on a shared screen so we could all be looking at the same thing?
I can. Nick, which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the proposed changes tracker? That's
No, procedures. And it was number 2, a formation of a subcommittee. And there was a breakdown of subcommittees into the different articles.
I'll pull it up right now.
The thinking, and I just want to let everyone know the thinking behind it was those articles themselves had similarities in theme and topic, which is how they kind of got grouped that way. And I'm wondering if, it's nice to take everything 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 if in a perfect world. But I'm wondering if it wouldn't be worthwhile to have a meeting dedicated to the theme of, committee structures. So, articles 2, 4, and 8 end up being the subject of discussion for one of our meetings. I'm just trying to go through how we best break this down and understand it. And I think to Tom's earlier point, which is when we get into more specific details, we probably will receive more pointed public comment and thoughts from people looking to make a change. If you scroll down to item 2, which is the formation, so you can see that articles 3, 7, 9, and 10, they were kind of grouped together because of the nature of them. I'll be honest, 5 and 6 were really the bigger group, with 1 was the kind of the throw on. 1, I don't think we have any comments on. Number 1, it's more of an intro, at least from the latest rounds of comments that was kind of thrown in there. But 5 and 6 are pretty meaty. When we get into budget and Board of Education and things like that, so I don't know. I'm trying to figure out a good way for us to move through this. I think, and I gotta keep an eye out on my screen. Yeah, keep your hand up for a second. I'm in tiles now, so I gotta pan through a little. Richard?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Mike made a suggestion, and I'm going to second it. I mean, I think if we walk through the document this evening, there are going to be some issues that we retained for the full group to discuss, and there are other issues in each of the articles that will go to the subcommittees that you've laid out. Subcommittee 1 is for Articles 3, 7, 9, and 10. Subcommittee 2 is Articles 2, 4, and 8, and so on. And we just, go right on through, and then we've got the structure that we need to move forward. So it is that hybrid model that we sort of voted on and we agreed to.
Thanks, Richard. Any other? I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through the tiles right now. So if you have a hand up, just kind of leave it up for me while I look. All right, thank you. All right, so we have a suggestion. That's just to jump right in and start rattling off. I'll ask kind of a point of order on this. We're starting to deviate from some of the agenda here, and I wanted to know what either staff has for guidance on that.
I think you've got a fair amount of latitude. It makes sense for you to kind of organize yourselves here. So I don't think there's any danger of deviating slightly. I think you're still on topic.
All right. That vote of confidence, we shall proceed. All right. Is everyone okay? So when we say we're going through the sections, are we going through the edited document that Liam had pulled together? Or are we just going through sections? Are we going through subsections? How is that best formed for this committee as we decide to either keep as a larger committee topic or form out?
Liam, can you stop sharing screen, please?
All right, thank you. Any thoughts on that?
Well, maybe we could just start off. It seems to me when I read all this, that the biggest change that lends itself to a full discussion is whether we have wards and how many counselors should we have. It seems like that's a humongous issue that could influence how other sections may go, and that should be one that goes to the whole group.
I would say walk through the document that Liam put together, and then if there was any that got missed or that people wanted to add, and then I think what Richard suggested, say, okay, this is going to be discussed at the larger group, but it belongs with committee 1, 2, or 3, because the committees could still talk about that based on which article it goes in as well. So
Sure.
That way we're kind of going, the hybrid approach. That would just be what I would think, the document. And then if we, if there are other things, and we know we'll have to do this probably almost every meeting as more changes come in, we kind of just go, if we had new suggestions, we kind of do the same thing, go through and say, is this does the whole group need to discuss this? Or does it go straight to subcommittee, or does the whole group, or is it kind of both? So that'd just be my thought.
All right, so I'm just going to read through it. So I'm going to call it as Article 1, Section 102. And we're just going to have to go through it like that. And I think we need to, do you just want to up and down after and Liam, you can, it's going to be tough to call with a shared screen.
Does everyone have it open on their, I don't know how everyone's set up.
Out. Can't you just print it out, everybody?
We can certainly share it, but I appreciate your point. It's nice to see people's faces.
Yeah, I think for the recording though, when people go back and watch the recording, having the document up, makes it easier for somebody to follow.
All right. Well,
I just I don't believe I hope you're not getting into any substantive discussion or debate on the matters. You're really just identifying topics, right?
I think at this point, we're just going to either assign them to the subcommittee level or retain them in full charter discussion. So if it's a retain, then they end up on agenda at another night. This would not be the forum this evening to discuss these in detail.
So Nick, I might suggest you just take it up by article, not each section. Just say Article 1. Is there any burning issue here that people, and people need to speak up.
No.
Let's start with the article approach. We might get down into a discussion of whether, Article 5, Section 10 should be kept, or
Perhaps.
but yeah,
Make
let's.
sure that we all have the same document open and give us a couple of minutes to do that, because at least show us what it is that we're going to be talking about.
I appreciate the need for the substantial discussion to be able to see everyone. I think for the purposes of this exercise, why don't I share the document so we can walk through? And again, I suspect that the issues will become quite clear, and they'll be quickly determined whether they require a substantial discussion or whether there's at least agreement on the issue and likely requires additional research, whether that's pulling other charters or whether that's doing the compensation piece. Again, there's a lot of discussion around that. It's a pretty simplistic issue. So does that make sense? And Nick, you can do your scrolling to call out on people, and I'll share my screen. Does that sound like a good plan to walk through?
Yeah, I think that's the best we're gonna get right now. So let's go for it.
Do you wanna just take a record of what the articles and sections are that we want to revisit, whether it's subcommittee or whether it's group? Does that make sense? Just 2 columns? Or is there a volunteer for that?
I'll be taking that in the minutes.
Okay, all right.
Because I printed mine out, so I can write right on the document.
Okay.
Keep track of it.
All right. So I have Article 1, grant powers to the town. And all right. I do not believe there were any comments from any of us on this section. So we'll not assign that anywhere other than to the full charter at this point.
No, the opposite, Nick. There are no comments on it, so it goes to the subcommittee.
That's your thought? No comments goes to subcommittee?
Sure, let them, and then if things come up, the subcommittee can deal with them.
Well, I don't think that's what we voted on, but
That is exactly what you voted on.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, then it's every article.
No, in Article 2, the issue about the ward, I would say that issue, from my perspective, stays with the full committee.
Okay,
and this is, sorry, I'm just reading through here.
So do you want us to weigh in? I mean, without
Art-
seeing everybody's picture, we can't figure out, I can't figure out from a note-taking perspective where the thoughts are.
So Article 2 is town council. It goes over the number, term, and election qualifications and vacancies, powers and duties of the council, enumeration of powers of the council, compensation for the council, regular meetings, town council to judge, induction of the council into office, quorum and vote, chair, vacancies. So this is a big section, and I think we're going to tackle my biggest concern in the world right off the bat here. How is this going to be digested in a full 9-member voting committee? So, Mr. Silkman, go ahead.
What I would recommend on Article 2 is that 2 issues stay with the full committee. The question about ward representation and the issue of whether or not termination for, I'll just use the generic term, moral turpitude. But that all other issues that are identified in Article 2 go to the subcommittee, which is Subcommittee 2 in your list. That would be, for example, a motion if we were doing it that way, and we're not. I mean, this is by consensus. So, but that's what I would suggest we do on Article 2.
I guess all right. So we have a suggestion to keep only 2 items of the entire section with the full committee: compensation and
Not compensation.
not compensation. Sorry.
Ward issue and the question about moral turpitude. How do you dismiss?
Okay. So does anyone have any one of the other sections they'd like to see kept by the committee? For example, compensation. Is anyone thinking that's worthy of the larger discussion of the group?
I think it is.
Right. So I think it's tough.
No,
And you're gonna have to apologize for my hesitation on this. I am, I like you am trying to work through this on the fly, which is, I now need to go back and reread all of the notes I had as well to make sure I don't see anything missed on my end. I imagine all of you are as well. So apologize if this is not going as smooth as it would like it to. I had a question on vacancies. I think probably could be handled out on a subcommittee level. But I guess if the subcommittee feels it should be brought back to the full committee, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, keep in mind, even though it goes to subcommittee, it comes back to you for final consideration. So it's
Of
not
course.
as if you're giving it up forever. So
Yes, I get that. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, so I have 3 items that will be referred to subcommittee, which is Article 2, Section 202. Is that correct?
Well, Nick, wouldn't it be easier to just say what's going to be left with the whole committee and then the rest is with the subcommittee than to try to parse every section like that?
I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out what the larger group is retaining. That's what I'm asking.
Ward representation and moral turpitude has been suggested, and then another suggestion was compensation.
That looks like section 201, 202. I think it would use.
That's what I'm trying to get at. What are the section numbers I'm writing down here?
Yep, section
Thank you.
201, 202, 205. And to the degree we're taking suggestions from staff, I know that section 211 is vacancies. Nick, I don't know if that's something that the group wants to take as a group, or maybe that's subcommittee. But section 213
Subcommittee for at this point.
Section 213, there's quite a lot of feedback on public hearings on ordinances. I'm not sure if that's subcommittee but that received quite a lot of public comment, or comment from the committee rather.
On emergency ordinances, I would put that at subcommittee for the time being. If it needs to be elevated to full committee, that would be my vote in favor. I guess if
So there's emergency ordinances, but there's also public hearings on ordinances, which is more general. That's section 213, and then.
Right.
The other thing to keep in mind is if someone has fire in the belly about a particular issue in a particular article that doesn't, goes to subcommittee, then you should be on that subcommittee, right?
Yeah.
So I would suggest you try to do this as kind of as agreeable as possible. Do it topical and bring it up and without objection. And I suggest if there's, if someone thinks it ought to be full committee, there ought to be good reason that the full committee doesn't retain it. So I hopefully you can work through these fairly quickly, but we'll see. So for instance, Alan brought up compensation. I didn't hear an objection, and so I think that is a third item retained by the committee.
(201), 202, and 205. That's the sections I have for our Article 2. Is that accurate, everyone? Sorry, I'm scrolling through, and please feel free to use your voice to get my attention while I do this on the panel.
I think this
We
is
have,
really,
why don't we have Liam just scroll through and we'll just walk it through?
That's what I think we're doing.
Oh,
Article
okay.
3.
Just
What do
seems
we have?
like you're working harder than you have to, and I hate to see that, Where are
Oh,
you now? Where are you?
Article 3.
I don't think you need a town manager, so you could get rid of the whole thing.
Delete. That's the only comment I had. It's weird. All right.
Full committee, section 301.
All right.
So are we down 201, 202, and 205 to be retained by the full committee and the rest go to a subcommittee, just for note purposes here?
Yes. 201, 202, and 205 are of Article 2 are retained by the full committee. The rest goes to sub. And Article 3, the town manager, Do I have anyone with their hands up or thoughts on this? I had, I don't think I have anything that needs to be quote unquote retained by the full committee. Did anyone else have anything?
I think these are all subcommittee. I would agree.
Okay. So Article 3, what's Article 4, Department of Education?
Yes.
So let's see.
Some of this relates to one
There's
of
compensation on item 406 is compensation. If you're
moral turpitude is in this article too.
right.
There's also the issue around vacancies and how quickly to fill. That was a common theme for both town council and the Board of Education. 30 days, 90 days, 60 days, etc.
Right.
But that's a subcommittee list item, right?
Sure.
Yes.
I think it, I mean, what's the appetite for the full committee? So to follow suit here with what the town council in Article 2 section, I have Article 4 would retain qualifications. No, sorry.
Yep, 402.
402.
The moral turpitude, where's that?
That's 402.
Is it okay? So then compensation
Compensation is 406.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so 406, and then what was the third? The third one is wards. That isn't on the school board for the wards.
It could be.
It seems like if the council's on the wards, it ought to be added here.
Yeah, I think it's a good debate topic, whether you would do wards for both or just one.
Since it's not in there now, should we just add it here and use the word wards?
So that'd be 401.
It would be, let's see, 7 members. Yep. Okay, thanks.
All right. So I've got 402 and 406 and wards.
Yep.
As part of the discussion. Okay.
Which Tom said is 401, so is the ward question.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Article 5, the budget.
Where is that?
I apologize, Richard. I just copied and pasted your contribution on this subject into the beginning portion.
Always safe. No problem, Liam.
Mm.
So what is
There's a lot of language there, but it's a fairly simple concept.
Yeah, it doesn't seem too complicated here.
I might suggest a subcommittee can deal with that quite effectively.
Agreed.
Yep. I don't see anything here. Article 6, tax administration. I don't know if we had much for comments on that one.
6.
No, I don't think there's anything here to retain.
Okay.
Item 7, municipal development. Long range planning committee. I know we had comments on some of that.
I think maybe the size of the committees could be discussed by the larger charter.
So that would be section 704.
You could do it for just as a general discussion for those, the size of the committees.
Some of these we have no control over. The planning board, zoning board, and board of appeals, or zoning board. Long range is a local board that you certainly have control over.
I'm sorry, Tom. The charter says 5 members. We couldn't amend that to 7 members? For instance,
I'll
the
check, but I
planning-
believe that's prescribed by state law. It's
Is
just
it okay?
recited here.
All right, so Article 7, just refer all of it to sub, except for a larger discussion of committee sizes.
Yeah, I know one counselor has some thoughts about long-range planning committee, but I think he certainly could attend the subcommittee and make those thoughts known.
All right, so Article 7 goes right to the subcommittee for at this point.
Okay.
Anything that is kicked up, it can be. Article 8, nominations and elections.
I think the issue about when the elections are held is probably something that the full committee should deal with.
Right.
Agree.
The rest of it, I think, is
I
also.
agree.
Agree.
Yeah.
Agreed.
That's 801.
Yeah.
Section 801. Full committee. Okay. Any other items in there? I don't believe so.
Excuse me?
I don't believe there's any.
The other
I
one
guess
was terms, limitation of terms.
806.
Yep.
802.
Okay. Article 9.
So is that going to the big committee terms to 806?
81 and 806 to the
Okay,
state
thanks.
retained by the committee.
Okay.
Article 9 is the referendum and initiative. I think there's a couple of topics in this one that probably should be discussed on the larger scale. And I think in general, it has to do with the numbers that are included. So the numbers to receive, or a number to complete the petition, and then a number that is the submission of the signatures. So I think, the 25% number has been questioned. I think the 25 people number have been questioned. So I would almost classify this as a threshold discussion. Rather, does anyone have anything on the substance of the sections, or does it mostly have to do with the threshold?
And
The thresholds.
Mostly thresholds. Yeah,
Yep.
mostly numbers.
Yeah. All right. So I'll recommend that we deal with the threshold on Article 9.
Numbers, right?
Yes.
I suggest if it's going to be the larger committee, why don't we just talk about the whole article or the whole section? You're going to parse out just the numbers? It's hard. to talk
I don't
about.
think there's a whole lot else for substantive changes other than the discussion around the numbers.
That's right.
I mean, I'm looking at the notes that are up on the screen, and I'm also looking at my own notes, and I think everything really is really whether or not the thresholds are right.
Yeah.
But if someone did want to bring something forward, that would probably be okay, right? We're not going to say, no, it's not a threshold topic.
Right,
Would you
right.
say, Nick, or?
Yeah,
I mean-
it's mostly numbers.
I do recall the recall portion of this article came into play for the first time in the last revision process. So that was a big change. I don't hear anyone clamoring for it, but you could offer to repeal that if you wish.
I would say the other section is 907.
Yes, I very much would like you to consider 907.
There's some questions in here. Who is Tom gonna get? You gonna try to answer those on the Google Doc, the sharing? Because Mike has questions.
Yeah,
I think the question should be kind of discussed at a subcommittee level, right?
Softballs, the softballs will come out.
Yeah, we could, the questions to subcommittee, I'll write that down if that's agreeable.
Where are we, Nick?
Article 9 was threshold and section 907.
907 is an issue that comes up very consistently with referendum questions.
Again, it's a threshold. It's a threshold item. It's a
Yep.
dollar amount, right?
Yep.
But for clarity's sake, 907 has to do with bonding and capital improvement expenditures.
Okay.
All right. Article 10. General provisions. I had some notes on section 10:02.
Where are your notes?
Hidden. they're coming. I haven't. I hand wrote all throughout my book, and I need to spend an hour putting them into a document for you guys.
Seemed like, Nick, on section 10, there were two issues that arose. One was the review period for the charter, and the second was the conflict of interest question. And those might be committee issues.
That could be subcommittee.
Yeah,
I'm
I
fine
would
with-
agree. I think 10 can go to subcommittee.
Excellent.
I mean, I had a question about the fines, $10 and $100. Seemed like didn't seem like it was very persuasive to stop doing whatever illegal activity it was you were doing, but whatever. So that could be following state statute for all I know. But,
I had that same question,
right.
Nick.
So,
Nick, do you mind if I do a little side note here? When we charge the committees, there are other places that control some of this too. Their policy, not charter, so they can be changed by full votes of town council. But so when people are looking at these, they might want to, ask staff or whatever, what policies do we already have in place that also impact this? The beauty of a policy is it can be changed more easily than a charter. The bad thing of a policy is it can be changed more easily than a charter. So you should, think about that. But there are things that govern some of this outside of just what you're seeing in the charter. And there's a lot of documents we have. So that may be an area the subcommittees definitely want to make sure that they explore what else is governing what they're looking at.
Betsy, are those all available on the website?
They are, I think, mostly it's one or two documents, I would say. But I would think that, as counselors, we could help and staff could help on that.
It's predominantly chapter 302.
Right,
Council rules.
302 and 302A, and 101's maybe a thing or two. So it is all in one spot on the website. It's kind of worth looking through that.
Thank you.
Those are the sorts of resources we'll make available on that shared drive.
thanks. I got a quick clarifying question here on section 10. Did I hear that we wanted 1008, which was the period of time for the charter review, to be retained or sent to sub?
I had sub on my note, so.
Okay.
I thought, Richard,
I
did
think
you
it should
bring
be
that
a
up?
full. That should be full.
I mentioned the two issues, that and then the other question about conflict of interest. There were lots of discussion about, but I'm happy with the subcommittee taking care of it.
Okay.
Again, I think if it hits a subcommittee and there's still issues with it, I think they should, immediately raise it to the full committee. I think that's also part of
That's fair.
their responsibility,
Yep.
Right.
So,
I mean, no work of the subcommittee is gonna go straight to the council. It's got to go through the full committee, right?
absolutely. What we're trying to do is limit how many of,
Right.
All right. So we've hashed that out. Now the question is who's sitting on these subcommittees? When are they going to meet? Now that we've assigned the topics, to the subcommittees, did we want to follow the format I outlined as far as dividing up the sections, or do you want to just, have people, raise their hand and say, I'm going to tackle section?
No, and Nick, I think you gave some thought. There is, I appreciate why you've put those articles together. I think that I would suggest you try that first. And I would encourage folks that have a particular interest in the subject matter that these articles pertain to, you ought to raise your hand to be part of that subcommittee.
Absolutely. Does everyone thumbs through and see which ones did I like the most? So
on more than one, Nick?
yeah, I think the idea was that we just didn't have it just said up to 4 committee members could be a member of a subcommittee. So the chair, and then, so we wouldn't have more than 5 people there, would be the idea. But yes, I mean, there's 9 of us and, 10 sections, or 3 groups. So I think we should all expect to sit on maybe 2 of them, not 3 of them, because that would just defeat the purpose, but
So I'd be interested in number 3.
number 3, okay.
Three.
That's not Article 3. Are you saying Articles 1, 5, and 6, Annalee?
Right, you're number 3. You're A1, A little I1, 3.
Got it. Okay, so
I al-
Annalee,
I
So
also
tell-
have some interest in 3 as well.
Alan
Nick.
Foster.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm trying to write them down, so speak up.
Okay, so I've got Annalee and Alan Foster on Articles 1, 5, and 6 so far. Any other committee members want to join? I got Mike Stevenson and Allison
Yeah.
Bristol with hands up.
Allison, go
Oh,
ahead.
different subcommittee. Are you still on number 3?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of fill that out as we get started here.
Oh,
So-
wait.
You didn't raise your hand for 3, Allison?
No.
Oh, all right, let me cross that out.
Mike,
Sorry.
did you rate Mike
No,
Stevenson?
I didn't either.
Okay, you didn't
Oh,
either.
okay,
I'll do
I
3.
had you both on 3, sorry.
Okay, so let's go here. Allison Bristol, what committee were you looking at?
2 and 1, if we're doing multiple committees, but 2, I would lean towards 2.
Okay. Allison is looking at number 2. I was also looking at number 2.
Nick.
Yeah, so was I.
And who is it
Who
coming
was-
from?
who was
Mike Stevenson?
that?
Okay.
Yep.
Mike, oh, okay.
Okay. Sorry, out of picture, I'm writing down across my body. For Articles 3, 7, 9, and 10, the first bullet point.
I'll
I
do
don't
that.
have, I don't have the document in front of me, but I'll do that with
Richard,
Richard.
And
So
Mike, and Karen.
Mike W,
I
Karen,
can do it. Yeah.
I'll do it too. And
and
Mary.
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 If that's too many, I don't know where we're at for numbers.
that's
but-
4. That's
Okay.
good.
No, you're good right now.
Who's the
Um,
4th? I have Mike W, Karen, and Mary. Who was the 4th?
Richard,
Richard.
Okay,
And we've only got 2 for Articles 1, 5, and 6. That's group number 3. If somebody else want to play on that committee for a little bit, that's the fun one. That's like the budget, and let me see if I like that too.
Alan, you're already on it, Alan.
Oh, okay, I thought.
I see
okay.
Richard raising
I'll
his
do
hand.
that one, Nick. That was
Yes.
that. I had most of my
Right.
comments on that one. So I'll do
Okay. So, and again, I don't want anyone to think that you're forever giving up on talking about any items in these other subcommittees. It's just
Absolutely not.
who's going to chew through the most of the work on it. All right.
Excuse me, Richard, did you change from 1 to 3?
Well, I will do,
He's on
if we want to keep them 3, I'll do number 3 and you can take me off of 1. And that way it's 3 and 3.
Okay.
Thank you. Trying to get my list straight. Thank you.
Okay. So I show now we have three members on each of the committees. Does that make sense? I show Articles 3, 7, 9, and 10, which is line 1, have Karen, Mary, and Mike. I have Articles 2, 4, and 8, showing Allison, Nick, and Mike. And I have Articles 1, 5, and 6, Ellen, Annalee, Alan, and Mike Wood.
No,
Richard,
Richard.
Richard. Okay, sorry.
Mike Wood's on number 1.
I don't have the document, so at least not up in front of me. So you'll mail this out to us?
oh, yeah.
It'll be in the minutes. Your articles 3, 7, 9, and 10, Mike Wood.
3, 7, 9, and 10?
Uh-huh.
Okay,
Could I be so bold to suggest that someone emerge as I won't say chair, but coordinator, so we can coordinate meetings?
absolutely. For Articles 3, 7, 9, and 10, Karen, Mary, and Mike, would somebody like to step forward and take the lead on that charge?
And Mary and Mike?
That's Mike, Mary, or Karen. So feel free to say I'll take the lead on those items.
Mike Wood, were you just clearing your throat, or did I hear you say you'd be pleased to?
Eh,
What do you think? Karen and Mary, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
All right. Well,
Mike Wood will act as primary for that subcommittee. Great. Allison, Nick McGee, Mike Stevenson. I have for Articles 2, 4, and 8.
I'll volunteer to do that if nobody else wants it.
Go for it. You'll take lead on that one. All right. Articles 1, 5, and 6, Anna Lee, Alan, and Richard.
I'll do that if you want.
Okay.
Okay.
Anna Lee. Thank you.
Now, in the interest of time and your time, are you okay if these subcommittees meet during the workday to the extent that it works for you? I'm not saying that you have to.
For
I
me,
think
it's
that
Billy. Yeah.
These
I think the
meetings will
three
be
people
public.
need to get together and determine that schedule, and yes, aim for a lunchtime break or something.
Yeah, and these will be all public meetings. So we'd like to get a schedule and publish that, and we'll coordinate all of our Zoom connections and so on and so forth. So
So will they be recorded as well, so that if people can't watch, if let's say you meet during the day, they can get back to it later?
yes,
Okay.
So let's bring up my document one last time. How did everyone feel about the process that was proposed of using the tracker sheet, documenting how a vote goes, making a recommendation? Anyone?
I think that's fine. I mean, we use that at work. It's called the comment resolution worksheet. So sure. You want us to populate that?
I think it'd be great to populate it.
Sure.
That way we have some good documentation of what was, and that's for perpetuity too. I mean, future committees will be able to easily see what sections were discussed and altered and voted up and down.
And you want subcommittees to make the entries?
Yeah, each subcommittee would.
yeah.
Okay.
Rather than individuals necessarily. Now, I think use your subcommittees to be populating that.
Sure.
Nick, can I just make an observation there? I love the tracker form. Because of the number of columns in there, it's going to be difficult to print it on a single sheet as far as the width is concerned. And I noticed that column 1 is the section, and column 2, I think if you just put the 3-digit section in one column instead of having 2 columns, it might just make the document a little narrower.
Yep.
I mean,
yeah, we can tweak it.
Yeah, I'm open to the tweak. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not chiseled in stone. All right.
If you give us a little bit of editorial license, I'm sure Tody can come up with a document that accomplishes what you want.
Absolutely. Okay, so scheduling of the subcommittee meetings, I'm going to trust that the 3 people that sit on each of those subcommittees work together within the next day or 2 to come up with a scheduled meeting date for their subcommittee that could be shared with staff as well as the rest of the committee, because some of us might have interest in attending or contributing to those meetings before you get into them with extra comments.
Could I ask Nick that the subcommittee chairs or coordinators coordinate through Tody, just so she has full appreciation for the different schedules, and she'll coordinate, make sure we get those populated on the town calendar and all of you aware of what the other committees are doing.
I think that's fair.
Okay.
Do we have contact information for each so if I wanted to just communicate with the other 2 people on my subcommittee,
Sure.
do we have individual ways to do that, please?
Of course, we'll send that contact list out tomorrow. Yep.
And then I have one more question, Liam. Somebody sent me some historical stuff, and so I used that general email to send it out to everybody. I thought they'd be interested, but it came back.
Okay, so that was going to be one of my, so we'll follow up on that. And that wasn't my expectation. The charter committee at Scarborough, Maine email address should have distributed to everyone on that distribution list.
I'll try.
So I will follow up with IT on that. My other plug was going to be that anything that's sent over the email chain or sent between committee members is subject to FOIA. So just keep that in mind as we're communicating with one another, that's all subject to public disclosure. I know that Councillor Gleistein suggested that we publish emails or comments. We'll work on compiling that. Hopefully it doesn't become too administratively taxing. The last comment I just want to make while I have the the floor is that we do have through the website, if you go to your subcommittee page, there is a tab for questions and comments that's intended to be used by the public. Again, they can certainly cycle through any one of the committee members to have their comments or questions forwarded on for answering a response, but that is another vehicle for the public to submit questions directly to the committee. Those emails or those comments will be sent to, I believe, Tom and Tody at this point.
Then will we get those?
Staff would, yes, we would make sure that those are all brought to the committee's attention. Yeah.
Thank you.
Nick, that was kind of a segue. In just terms of email, you really shouldn't have a substantive discussion in email. You can like coordinate your times and stuff like that. But if you got something substantive to discuss, it's better if you do it in your subcommittee that's open to the public and recorded. That just bear that in mind. So Liam, you just mentioned things that come in. Would a suggestion be for the chair to parse that, if something new comes in, the chair to parse that out to the right subcommittee, or Liam, you to parse it out, and then the subcommittee could deal with it and then say, hey, you know what, this is a pretty big deal. We're going to bump that back up. So let the subcommittee make that recommendation if it needs to come back to full committee. Because I feel like people are going to start hearing about this, and we're going to start getting more. And I'm just trying to say, how are we going to parse that out as they come in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good. I think that we should be agile here. I mean, I don't know what we can expect for response. I think that if it's a handful of communications, make sure that the chair has them, or maybe the whole committee, if it's just a few. If it starts getting really specific, or that flow or that volume really increases, then perhaps more targeted. But it goes back to your suggestion around making sure we have a good repository for those comments and questions that are freely accessible to the committee members as a whole. Probably a non-answer. Let's be flexible with what the volume is and respond accordingly.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, let's cross that. I mean, if we get public information in, or they want a question answered, I think, I'm happy to digest it and see whether it should live at the full committee level or through the subcommittee. I imagine most of the comments received through the public would probably be on the bigger items anyways, so we might be retaining them anyway. But all right, I want to try to wrap this up. I know everyone's got somewhere to be, but so subcommittee leaders / chairs, whatever you would like to designate yourself as, if you could within the next day or two come up and get Tody the schedule, a time to meet. It should be shared with everyone here, so we have we know the deadline by which to submit to you anything in writing that we'd like you to discuss at your subcommittee level. As far as setting the items for the next agenda, we have saved ourselves some good topics. How does everyone feel about tackling Article 2 and Article 4, just the sections that we've pulled aside at our next meeting in 2 weeks? I know we pulled out portions of Article 2, Article 4, Article 8, Article 9. I'd be surprised if we get to all of that in one meeting. I mean, I suppose we could list them all and table any items due to time afterwards, if somebody thinks that's the better way to do it. Or do we just focus on and ask for public comment on Articles 2 and 4 as it relates to the moral turpitude, length of term, etc.
I'd suggest that's probably enough for your meeting.
They're big.
Yeah,
they're big, and I think they go hand in hand. I don't think we'd be talking differently about either one of them. I could be wrong, but all right. So
sections 2 and 4, is that what you ended up with?
Yeah, okay. Articles 2 and 4, the sections that we pulled out. So that will be on in 2 weeks from now. That will be our next committee meeting discussion. I will have a standing item on the agendas for subcommittee reports. I would expect each ringleader to give us at least a briefing on what's been going on, an update, and share any other information that they may have, including requests to bring something to the full committee for discussion. All right. Any other items this evening?
Leanne has her hand up.
Who?
Leanne.
I'm-
Hi, Nick.
Oh.
Yes.
Hi, Leanne. Sorry.
And I'm going to apologize in advance to Betsy and Jean Marie. I know we have a lot of meetings, but did you want us on any of those subcommittees, or are we just staying put on the main committee?
My goal is going to be to attend as many as I can. So once the
Yeah.
schedule comes out, I'm definitely going to try to attend the ones that I can. If not, watch them.
Okay.
And then, you know,
Yeah, and that's my plan, rather than be assigned to something, because I'm all committed out half the time. But I don't want the committee to not be able to schedule work because I can't make it. So
and then I would, you know, when the subcommittees report out, if I wasn't able to attend, or, I have something to add, I'll say, hey, I had this thought over that, but hopefully it's awesome that we can record so easily now, because, it's great that we can kind of catch up as these happen,
Mhm.
All right. Yeah, and make it clear, any one of us can and should attend the subcommittee meetings if we can. So,
Right.
all right. Without any other business, I would entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
I got one more question, or maybe
Yes.
two.
Mike?
Yeah, so my subcommittee is potentially finding it most convenient to do Thursdays. Is that going to be a problem with the main committee? Or do we want to avoid Thursdays?
I don't think you want to be holding your subcommittee meeting on the same night. I mean, unless you're doing it from 5:30 to 6:30, I guess.
Yeah.
But I hope you would not hold it from 6:30 to 7:30.
Well, you could do it on the opposite Thursdays.
Right, right. Okay.
I don't think that's problematic.
Because we're planning on meeting every other week?
We are second and fourth Thursday of the month.
Okay. All right. Good.
Any other questions or discussion items? No? If so, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Entertain a motion.
All right, I got a motion from Mr. Foster, a second from Mr. Wood. All in favor? Show that is unanimous. Thank you all for your time this evening. I appreciate it.
All right,
Thanks,
please
Nick.
do
Thank
coordinate.
you.
thank
Please
you,
Please do
everybody.
coordinate with Tony.
Yes, everyone stay in contact. Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Yeah, thanks.